Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, my name is Cathy Glennon, and I love the cinema, by the way. I went to see Downton Abbey the last time, and it was fantastic. But anyway, my name is Cathy Glennon. I'm a market research manager for Electric Ireland, and we are a part of ESB. So I've been working in research for the past 13 years, and 9 of those years was spent in a market research agency. And then I made the move to client side, which is very different with its own new sets of challenges, but I do like it. Who here works in a research agency at the minute? Okay, we have a couple. Yeah, and former research agency people? Couple. Okay, so we have a good mix. That's good. So firstly, I suppose I'll introduce ESB and Electric Ireland. So ESB, I promise it's not too much of a history lesson, but it was started in 1927, and that James Bond type figure in the top left, 27-year-old man, he set it up. So he managed to convince the government at the time to give him 20% of GDP to set up ESB and electrify, or kind of have the electrification of Ireland. So he built Ardna Crusha there on the bottom right-hand corner. I don't know, anybody planning a trip to Ireland next year? Okay, if you're going in the summer, they do a very good tour, so highly recommend. But for years afterwards, ESB was the, the only kind of electricity supplier to Irish households across the nation. So an electricity generator and the sole supplier. And then in 2011, we had a change. So we went from being the one company to being split into two. So we have ESB Networks on the one side, and they maintain the grid and they sell electricity to energy suppliers. And then the side I work for, Electric Ireland, completely separately and ring-fenced, we sell to Irish households. But with that change, of course, you had new competition. So customers used to, sometimes they still do, call it the ESB bill instead of the electricity bill. That's how ingrained ESB is in the country. But we do have new competition now, and it's getting much and much tougher, particularly because of other changes that we've had, like the energy crisis. There's a lot of aggressive acquisition deals on the table, all that kind of stuff. So other changes in our industry, you had like the launch of smart meters in Ireland in 2019. You had the start of the energy crisis, as I mentioned, in 2022, meaning bills have gone really high. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that don't like the fact that I'm working for an energy company. We're basically the new banks, I think. People don't like us. But you also have smart meter plans came into play. So that gave the option of having time of use plans. So you can have a plan with a different unit rate at different times of the day. So for example, if you have an electric vehicle, you can charge at nighttime for really cheap. Then you also have the arrival of net zero products. So we're not as advanced as kind of in the adoption of these as other parts of mainland Europe, but people are kind of, there's green shoots there, people are picking up on them. But all in all, that just means that customers are just trying to understand a category that is changing and that they've never really thought much about before, because let's be honest, it's not exciting. It's not a sexy industry, it's pretty dull. So our team, we are a small but mighty team of 3. We work for all different departments in ESB, except for ESB Networks. And we use a mix of research we do internally and research conducted by market research agencies. So we're basically like a mini research department, or a mini market research agency within the organisation. So I'm going to focus on our work for Electric Ireland today. So that is, our objective there is really to give that team a better understanding of customers and potential customers. And to explain how we do that, I'm going to go through a case study on a project we did for heat pumps. Do you know what a heat pump is? Yeah? Okay, cool. So, challenges though. Research visibility is the first one. So I don't know if the rest of you have this issue client side, but it can be a challenge to get the message out there that there is research available, to get them to listen to your insights, and most importantly, to get them to do research before making decisions, because oftentimes the customer is forgotten. We have had personnel changes. We've had a shift to hybrid working. So when we're not all in the office together, it's easier for distance to grow. And you know, we're a very large organisation. So we have to educate all of our colleagues about who we are and what we do. So how we do this, we attend as many meetings as we can. So if there is an envelope being opened in Electric Ireland, we are there. We go to everything we're allowed into. We set up webinars for Friday mornings so people can join. They can sit there, camera off, drink a coffee, and just listen. And we'll talk about customer trends, or we'll have guest speakers talk about technology trends, all that kind of stuff. And we also use internal research projects to promote ourselves. So one example of that would be intercept interviews with staff. So we just literally set up a stall in the canteen, stop people and do little interviews with them, and just kind of demonstrate what we do in real time. Oh God, I thought that was 15 minutes gone and I was erasing. Oh my God, thank God, I was out of breath. Oh my God, anyway. So all of that promotion led us to get our brief for a heat pump research project. And we were approached by the Net Zero Products team, and they said, we need to understand, do we want to put out a proposition where it's heat pump installation only, where it's a heat pump tariff, or whether it's both? And so we looked at what they needed to know, and we came up with this 5-step research plan, which is basically desk research, depth interviews with heat pump experts, a workshop then to take a breath, see what we know, and try and understand, kind of come up with propositions to put into the market in testing. We did focus groups with those propositions, and then we'd have a quantitative survey to kind of quantify what was needed, or if there was interest, actually. However, we have a limited budget. So 80% of our budget is taken up with existing market research trackers that are done by agencies. We also have a Qualtrics license, and we have 20 teams in Electric Ireland residential alone to cater for. So it is tight. So we need to make the research we're working for the research we're paying for work as hard as we possibly can. And that is where we have the hardest working brand tracker in Ireland. That is an actual quote from our account manager in our market research agency. I know that is ugly as well, that big schedule, but that is a full list of questions that we put out there in the year. It took a lot of work building that in, and it came about as a result of a review at the end of 2023. So we sat down and we said, right, okay, what surveys are we paying for, and what can we get more out of? And the brand tracker was one opportunity. So how we came up with the schedule was we spoke to colleagues who were the existing stakeholders, mainly marketing, said, what do you need measured and when? And then we built out the Excel schedule and saw, okay, we have a gap in October, we have a gap in July, and we filled it with research needs from other teams around the business. We use a kind of omnibus question tally. So basically, to keep the questionnaires the same length each time, you're just kind of having, okay, so this is a yes-no question, it's 0.5 units, this is a standard question, it's 1, and in doing that, you can keep your questionnaire lengths the same each month. So this is a closer look at it. I don't know what I did in a past life, but it is my penance. But it is really useful, and it does work for us. Now, one thing I have to say is we didn't turn around to our research agency and say, here, do this. We take on an awful lot of the work ourselves. So we build out the schedule. When it comes to reporting, we have the research agency only look at marketing, sponsorship, and comms. And then we will take the data tables and analyse them and present back the results of other parts of it. So we're not shouldering it all on the agency because that's not fair. Other budget savers, so aside from the CX tracker that's done externally, almost all of our customer research is done in-house. So we have a Qualtrics license. We're getting about 50,000 survey responses per year. And so far, we've done about €65,000 worth of customer research for Electric Ireland residential free of charge. We do use agencies. I'm not standing here and saying we're getting rid of agencies, we're not. But where we can, we economise. So we will chart it ourselves, we'll present it ourselves, we won't ask them for that extra fee. For the qualitative then, so all of our team have experience doing qualitative research. So 2 of us from agency background, 1 academic. And so where we can, we will moderate our own focus groups. So you just have to pay for recruitment and venue hire. So obviously, you need an independent view at times. We know that, and it's amazing how quickly you can become institutionalized when you move client-side. But we do try and retain that agency bias. And so we have a really great partnership with our qualitative agency, Bricolage, and if and when we need an independent view, we go to them. But really, the mantra of the team is, can you do it yourself first? And if not, is there any part of it that you can do yourself? So to give you an idea in practice, so the methodology that we used in our heat pump case study, we had a 5-step plan there. So the desk research, can do that ourselves, so that's free. The depth interviews with heat pump experts, we were introduced to them by colleagues, and then we moderated the interviews ourselves, so no charge. The workshop, we designed that, we facilitated it, managed it, and worked with the team to generate the propositions we would test, no charge. The qualitative focus groups, so we conducted those ourselves. We moderated them, but we outsourced the venues and the recruitment. So we saved about 15,000 there. And then finally, the quantitative survey, we worked that into the dramatic schedule that you saw. So there was no fee for that either. So all in all, you're talking maybe 35, 40,000 if you went externally to do this, but we did it all for 8864. Now, we do have a lot to cover. You've seen our extensive list, our brand tracker. We also have our CX tracker. We have surveys coming in every day. And people will switch off if you have too much data, especially senior management. So we know we need to get people to listen to us and to pay attention to the insights that they need to pay attention to. So how we do this is we set up different presentations for different audiences. So we will, present to the digital team content that's relevant for them, or present to sales, or present, just have smaller audiences with more targeted content. And we also generate one-pagers. So this is a redacted version of one we do for the CX tracker. That's just a snapshot of the quarterly report. So we have a fantastic agency as well we use for this, Ipsos B&A, and they do I think it's like 200 pages, that report. It's brilliant, but they obviously don't present it all. They summarize it, and they give us a great summary. However, when it comes to senior management, they want a snapshot view of the whole thing without reading it, and that's what that is. And we have a kind of summary at the end that's like, this is what it all means, or this is what we think you should do. So, right, 7 minutes. Right, we're okay. Right, I'll go back to our heat pump case study, right? So these are kind of some of the learnings that we got out of that project. The first one being that the cost of living crisis is certainly pushing sustainability down from the top of the agenda. So these two quotes were from a focus group of heat pump owners, right? So we had one quote saying, basically, in the 70s it was infinite resources, but now we have to be green. This is our civic duty, we have to do this. And then another quote that's like, burning gas long term, not sustainable, whatever, blah, blah, blah. In other words, who cares? And the funny thing is, they're both from the same person within the space of about 15, 20 minutes. So really, there definitely is an internal struggle going on where people want to do the right thing, but they just find it difficult to achieve that. The second thing we learned is that cost is not the only barrier. So there's also, that's the full kind of list of barriers that we come across, but unfamiliarity and apathy I thought were the most interesting. So when it came to unfamiliarity, you had a lot of people who had done no research and were talking about heat pumps like they were an authority, but it was based on anecdotes they had heard about somebody who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who has a heat pump. So they just didn't really have reliable information. So definitely education, hugely important. Secondly, this kind of idea of if it ain't broke. So if you have a perfectly functioning gas or oil boiler, you're not going to rip it out and put in a heat pump. And similarly, if your gas boiler goes in the morning, you're not going to take loads of time, do loads of research to understand, will a heat pump work for me? You are just going to get the heating back on as quickly as possible and say to the plumber, give me what you got. So we knew we needed to educate people so that they were ready at the right time to get a heat pump. However, like electricity, heat pumps are not that exciting because a heat pump, I don't know if you know, but a heat pump keeps your home the same temperature. It's consistent. And things that are the same and consistent are really that exciting. So people talked about missing, the blast of heat from a fire or the blast of heat from a radiator. They were just kind of concerned about that. The other side of things is that it's quite a niche proposition. So in our quant survey, we found that just 8% of adults were living in a home with a heat pump at the minute, and then 15%, so just over 1 in 7, were likely to install one in the next few years. So it's quite niche. We did have some kind of more opportunities among the younger homeowners, but it's niche. But the last thing they learned, and my favorite bit of the whole report, was that the only way you can make heat pumps exciting for people, and the same is true for electricity, is when they are figuring out how to beat the system. So there's 3 factors kind of going into that, right? So you have the switching culture in Ireland. So I mentioned about how we've had a lot more competition coming into the market. You have higher prices, so people are looking at it more. So there's more switching. The introduction of smart meter insights. So anybody who moves to an Electric Ireland smart meter plan gets access to a dashboard, and it will tell them how much electricity they're using by hour, day, week, year, month, whatever. It'll also tell you how much you're spending on refrigeration versus cooking versus, always on. So people are challenging themselves to try and lower their bills. And lastly, the introduction of those time of use tariffs. So the kind of different plans to suit different lifestyles. So these 3 factors have led to customers becoming more excited about challenging themselves to lower their bills, and we felt that there was an opportunity here to leverage that excitement or kind of drive to move to electric heating so that it could be into the smart meter insights world. So what did the research lead to? I would love to stand here and say, everyone in Ireland has a heat pump now, yay! But that's not the case. But we did launch a pilot at the end of Q1. So they developed a landing page. The team were really appreciative of the feedback. And they developed a landing page that would educate people on heat pumps and how they could benefit them and their homes. So they leaned into the cozy home language to kind of cancel out the loss of the blast of heat, and they created a heat pump tariff so that they would reinforce the potential for cost savings. So, to sum up, I thought I'd go back to the challenges that we have and how we face them, just in case anybody else is feeling them too. So research visibility, just promote yourself every which way you can. Set up webinars on random topics and just get out and meet people. Set up a stall in the canteen and meet as many people as you can. Limited budget. Do a review, like an audit of what you're doing at present, and then try and work in more because you can. And then finally, the massive data, just present relevant findings to relevant teams and also generate one-pagers so that it kind of summarizes the full report. 2 minutes to spare.